Hello YouTube, I am back again for a review, and I'll be reviewing this big lovely brick, which is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Now, I read her first novel, The Secret History, last year, and I loved it so much that I really wanted to read her other acclaimed work, which is The Goldfinch. And I was so happy I read this. It is quite long. It is a labor of love. But if you're willing to attempt this, it is truly a rewarding book. Donna Tartt is such a fabulous writer, and through reading two of her three novels she's published, she's definitely become one of my favorite authors. I can't rave about her enough. I'm a total Donna Tartt fangirl. Okay, and so this book was originally published in 2013. It took her 10 years to write this book, and it was well worth it. So it follows a boy named Theo Decker, and it opens with his mother taking him to a museum in New York, the Metropolitan, I believe, to show him this painting, The Goldfinch by Fabricius. And so no, I mean, this isn't a spoiler because it happens very early in the book. Is that a bomb goes off in the museum and it ends up killing his mother, and so throughout this explosion, there's somebody else in the room who is a dying man from the explosion, and he gives him a ring to give to somebody else that we meet later in the story. But along in that same time, he has an opportunity, and he takes the painting of the goldfinch out of the museum with him, and in all the chaos, he goes by unnoticed. And so he kind of treasures this painting as kind of as from what I understood, just kind of a memento for his mother. And so this book is a big coming of age story. We kind of deal with Theo as a young, maybe, pre-teenager kind of time, going into his, mid-late 20s, I believe. And deals with him having to live with foster parents for a little while, and having to deal with his father and his wife at the time, and how they really how he has to do with his parents kind of not caring for him, his mother, his stepfather, his stepmother, and his father, and how he deals with that, and how he deals with the grief of thinking that it is his fault that that his mother died, because if he hadn't gotten in trouble in school, his mother wouldn't have had to go to school for a conference, and so they wouldn't have ever had to take a detour into the museum, and they would have avoided the explosion. And when we're a young child and something like this happens, it's understandable that we would probably think like that. And it's how he deals with grief and regret, and having to deal with parents who don't have a high regard for him, and the friends that he meets, and how they kind of influence him to be the person that he is. And so throughout all of this, there's always this underlining story of, what's going on with the painting. Why is it always this painting that this story is revolving around? Why is he so enamored of this painting? And it's like kind of like controlling his life. And hey, he's fearful of his life, and at times, because this painting is very famous, and he always he can never really display it anywhere, because it will be noticed, and they'll know that he is the one who you could do a lot of jail time for stealing a painting is famous. And so it also has it deals with love, and it deals with the idea of maybe marrying somebody that you don't think is right, but because it might appease somebody else, you feel inclined to do this. And it just all these really great topics that Tartt puts in this book that I just think are just so well done. And even though Theo isn't the most likable character, the ones who are the most likable really aren't featured hardly as much as Theo. But Tartt just makes you want to keep reading, even though you don't like them you don't like Theo all the time, or other characters in the novel. And but that's just what makes them human, because sometimes the characters will do something where you feel so sorry and you empathize with them, and you want things to turn out well for them, and then they'll go and do something completely ridiculous, like, oh my god, why did you do that? I don't like you again. But that's just like Tart's magic. She just crafts the most amazing, fully fleshed, real characters. I've never read such real characters until I read this book. Just their mannerisms, the way that they speak, the way that she describes them, just the way they interact with each other. I couldn't get over. It's one of the reasons why I loved the book probably as much as I did. Because I'd never read characters like this before that were so well defined and real. And so, yeah, as you can see, I truly adored this book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who feels like that they want to tackle it. But I definitely, it was a little intimidating at first when you're starting because it's about 800 pages, but the more that I read it, I was just it could just keep going on and on and on, and I would still want it to never end because it's it's just so well crafted and so well written, and I just eagerly anticipate Tart's next novel. So I just want to read you a little passages from the book that I found very beautiful and thought provoking. This deals with one of the characters in which Theo gives this ring to. And it says, "No, his hands came together at the table. It was one of the first antiques I ever bought 30 years ago, in an American folk sale. I'm not a great one for folk art, never have been. This piece, not of the first quality, doesn't fit with anything else I own. And yet isn't it always the inappropriate thing, the thing that doesn't quite work, that's oddly the dearest?" And this quote refers to when he's with his foster parents at the time, his one of his classmates' parents. At the silence, my heart went cold. Dead flowers stood rotting in the massive Chinese vases, and a shut-up heaviness overweighted the room. The air almost too stale to breathe, the exact suffocating feel of our apartment when Mrs. Barber took me back to Sutton Place to get some things I needed. It was a stillness I knew. This was how a house closed in on itself when someone had died. So on that note, she just has such beautiful prose and a way of storytelling. So enough about the Goldfinch. I just want to do a little am reading. I'm currently reading Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. Now, I really am enjoying this book. It's just so intriguing to read. The construction of the book is not like what I've read before. It reads almost like a script, but it flows very well. It doesn't really feel like you're reading a play, and so it deals with it's just historical fiction, and so it deals with Abraham Lincoln's son Willie Lincoln, and he dies when he was about 11, I think because of typhoid fever, and so it deals with, according to documentation, that before he was buried, he was laid in a crypt in which Lincoln would go and hold the body of his son. And so this really deals with the bardo is this state of in between, and so kind of like a limbo. And so we see all these different types of spiritual, ghostly figures talking to each other and wondering, who is this little boy who's in this space with us? And we see how they deal with death and how they deal with when Lincoln comes in to hold his son. It's heartbreaking and it's beautifully done. Yeah, I'm so excited to sit down and read this book whenever I get a chance. I originally heard about it on NPR months ago, probably beginning of the year, and it sounded very interesting, and so I added it to my list. And then I read later on that it won the 2017 Man Booker Prize, which I've loved all the books I've read that have been associated with that prize. Never Let Me Go and Atonement, The English Patient. And they've all just been such great books, and so I just knew that I had to read this even earlier than I had planned, and so it's been a wonderful experience so far. So that's all I have for you right now, and I will see you next time.